welcome back to episode 37 of Scar Bears. I'm Chris D.T. Gordon. It is a blessing, and it's so wonderful to have you here with me today. And Nate and Britton Barron, again, making me look and sound better than I actually do. If you want to reach out to them, you can find them at Nate Barron. Well, today's sponsor is this little string. It helps me remember. Oh, I guess it's not worth much after all. All right. Anyway, my guest today is Annie Harton, a licensed marriage and family therapist who is here not to talk about those icky outside scars, but the inside ones, not only about others, but also her own. How are you today, Annie?
I'm doing well.
Excellent. And so, as I said before, that you don't like to deal with the icky outside scars. You like to work with those inner ones. What got you interested in working with those?
Well, I definitely don't like blood. So I used to want to be a vet because I loved animals and loved that whole idea about healing people and animals. But I wasn't able to handle any sort of outside gooiness. So I grew up in a family of quadruplets. So I'm the big sister of quadruplets, and my parents have been married for a few decades. So I was so surrounded by family growing up and learned a lot about communication, learned a lot about love and feelings and relationships. So I always loved to listen and loved to help people feel happier and have more fun in life. And I wanted to bring that sort of joy, that sort of love that filled our house into other homes and other relationships.
You know, a lot of people who grow up in that kind of community, in their house, they do sometimes take it for granted. And when they see families that don't have that, they don't understand. And so for you to have that empathy, to want to share that with others is applaudable and laudable, and other words that rhyme with audible. So what were your first steps into becoming a therapist?
I really loved my senior psychology class in high school. We got to train rats, which was really fun. It was the season where Ethan Zahn won Survivor, and my family watched Survivor all the time. And so I named my little rat Ethan, and I really loved working with that rat all year as we got to do experiments and really see why we think what we do, why we do what we do, why we get scared, why we get excited about different aspects of life.
What was your most eye-opening revelation when you were working with Ethan?
I think it was the fact that he froze when we punished him. So we were working with these rats in the box, in the Skinner box, where we were able to train them to press a lever for food or to not press a lever for food, depending on what their surroundings were telling them. So if Ethan smelled lemon, he was supposed to press the lever for food. And if he saw a stuffed cat outside the Skinner box, he was supposed to not press it. And at first we did punishment by shock. So there's punishment by shock, and then there's punishment by removal. So when we shocked him, he just kind of froze up in the corner of the cage and didn't do anything and didn't want to do anything and just was paralyzed. So just the aspect of our humanness as well, to know that when something continues to happen to us, especially in this year of 2020, I feel like we can get weighed down, we can get paralyzed, we can lose that hope. That's what's the point of doing anything if this is going to happen to me again? So after we we did a couple more trials of removal, then he started doing more work when he saw, oh, I won't get shocked anymore. Now I'm just going to continue to go through the movement. So I thought that was really powerful to see happen.
Yeah, that is very interesting. When you said that he froze, I just imagine. Well, first of all, I imagine my dog. Whenever we catch him in the garbage,
Yeah.
look around him, and then for some reason I thought of Dr. Grant and the kids in Jurassic Park when the T-Rex was coming, and they kind of froze, and so I just imagine a rat freezing as a giant cat was looming over him. If I stay still, he won't eat me. So yeah. Anyway, go ahead. I'm sorry.
No, I'm always here for T-Rex jokes. I think T-Rex jokes are.
Gotcha. If you're happy and you know it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I love the making your bed one. That's my favorite one.
Yeah.
Making your. So after that class in high school, I went on to college to get a bachelor's in psychology. And at the end of your bachelor's, you start taking clinical. So there's many different kinds of psychology. So I didn't really know exactly where it was going to take me. I was looking at PhD. I was looking at some different avenues to go, whether it was research or whether it was all therapy related. So I loved my clinical classes. It was like free therapy in school because we have to practice with our classmates. So it was really fun to really see the power of just having a simple question asked of you, or an exploration of a time where this happened in your life, and then people are crying in class and being like, I didn't know that was there. I didn't know I had anything to talk about. And it's just amazing how that attention can really help you explore what's all inside, and all those scars and wounds that you weren't aware of until someone kind of prodded at them. So then I went on to get a master's in theology, actually. So alongside studying psychology, I went to a Catholic college, St. Mary's at Notre Dame, and I did a lay ministry certificate as well, because I've always been interested in my faith. And there was this program across the street at Notre Dame that allowed me to work in a parish somewhere in the country. So I went to Texas for 2 years and worked in ministry. And as I learned theology, and as I learned about how the church community works, and how we are called in our hearts and our minds, and to discover something deeper, and to come to the faith, especially when I heard people's stories of becoming Catholic and where their lives had led them to this particular day of when they're like, I want to enter today, rather than 20 years ago, 50 years ago, or wherever they were in their journey. But even though I loved ministry, there was still this calling to say, do marriage counseling, do marriage counseling, do marriage counseling, because there was a depth that I wasn't able to reach as a minister, because there were families all the time that came in with stories and, asking for prayer, or saying they were going to get a divorce, or saying that they were in some sort of family difficulty. And there was like a fire in me that was like, oh, I want to go behind the scenes with you and like help you figure this out. There's one.
You couldn't like take off your minister hat and put on your therapist hat?
I wanted to, and realized that I couldn't until I was licensed. So there was this fire that I just couldn't put out, even though it was an awesome way to serve. The story I like to bring up is there was this family that we were teaching about forgiveness, and this mom just walked by me and said, thanks for teaching me how to teach my kids about forgiveness. My husband and I are no longer going to get a divorce. And then she walked out. And then I was like, whoa, like that's, I want to help. I want to help you with that. There's a lot going on there, and that doesn't just change overnight. Like we need to work on communicating, work on healing. And so there were interactions like that really made me want to jump in further to the behind the scenes of the counseling.
Yeah. Wow. Okay. And so you exit the ministry and enter the
Another grad
therapy
program. So
realm.
my second master's was here back in Indianapolis in marriage and family therapy. So it was a specialization, which for all those who do some sort of counseling, there's alphabet soup related to all of the licenses and specialties. And what's neat about marriage and family is that we're specialized on systems. So we take 4 semesters or so of how systems work and how relationships kind of work together and how you communicate and how you deal with feelings and how you explore. Like there's just so much exploration on that specifically that the other licenses don't focus on exclusively, because there's other ways to focus. Yeah.
Okay. And so when you entered that realm, how long was it before you reached your next, I guess, benchmark or your next adventure?
Yeah. In internship, we had to interview someone. Well, no, it was an ethics class. In ethics class, we had to interview someone in the field. And
Mhm.
for marriage and family, it's hard to find a lot of internships related to couples and family, because a lot of times it's a private practice or someone that doesn't necessarily take a lot of interns, like
Yeah.
a hospital or a clinic or a community health kind of setting. So I found this guy on catholictherapist.com, and he said, "Oh, I want to interview you too," because the fact that I shared his faith, he was as excited about meeting me as I was about meeting him. And so I ended up working at his practice for 6 years or so
Mm.
throughout all of my time post grad. And then I did some ministry jobs, and then I was laid off from a community health center at the start of COVID. So
Mm.
at the start of quarantine, they had to lay off a lot of employees, but I had thankfully finished my therapy hours. So we have to get 1,000 hours in order to get licensure. So I had finished those 1,000 hours. And thanks to my book that I'm going to be talking about here in a minute,
Please do.
another therapist found me and reached out on my website, and I'm at his practice now. And it's just the greatest blessing I could imagine.
That's great. That's fantastic. Yeah, I know a lot of people are finding that it's necessary to pivot and to find that next angle, or maybe jump in a whole new lake and and start swimming. And so yes, we are going to go back to that book because you don't just say, "Hey, I have this book," and walk out the door like you said a couple minutes ago. You just drop that suitcase and not open it up. So let's hear about this book.
Yeah. So I have always been wanting to be a marriage and family counselor, but I was never in a relationship myself. So I was in relationships with friends, with family members, but was always the odd one out of my friend group. I was always the 5th wheel, 7th wheel, whatever, how many ever wheels I was. But I was always wondering, why am I not dating? Why does no one seem to want me to be more than a friend? I was always kind of the friend zone
Mm-hmm.
with people. And all through college I didn't date, then grad school I didn't date. And then I was praying for this date for a wedding. I had my first +1 invite to a wedding. And so
Yeah.
I prayed for a year for a date for this wedding, and not just any date, but like the date. For like, I was tired of being alone. I was like, I'm ready to meet the one. And so on the 30th day, so I prayed for a year, and then I also prayed the specific 30-day prayer. And on the 30th day, I met this guy, and it was really cool how that all played out. So then he ended up being my first love, and we dated for 2.5 years until he felt that he wasn't he wasn't feeling worthy about us. He wasn't feeling worthy about my love. He wasn't ready for marriage. We had talked about marriage since day one. And so it was just, we were mid 20s. We were serious. And so I think that was the biggest pivot for me, I guess, in saying, okay, I thought my life was going in this direction. I thought that this made sense why I waited. This made sense why my dreams were pointing in that direction. And then here there was a no. And I go, wait a minute. How can you be shopping for rings and then like change your mind? And then now I'm left with nothing again, and now I'm like back to single Annie, that I was always single Annie, then that time, and then I was single again.
Yeah.
And I have never felt that low. After that point, I just was like, out of all the counseling work I've done, out of all the study of relationships, we had everything. We went to counseling. We had everything going for us. Everyone was telling us we were going to get married. The stars were aligning, and all of my analytical ness about relationships and love and all of that. I was feeling so inadequate and kind of so dumb. Like, I was just like, did I miss something? Like, did I miss something here? And so
did he ever give a specific moment where he came to this realization, or was it something that had been eating at him or in the back of his mind for some time?
A lot of it was from the back of his mind. A lot of it was just his growth and development. A lot of men are kind of feeling that too, that there's this kind of feeling of what happens when I get married and how does that change my life now, and how am I dealing with my old wounds, and how am I just kind of coming to terms with what marriage is and who men are when they get married and what that does. So there was a lot that he was figuring out in his own heart, his own walk, his own hopes, his own understandings of how things would be. But there was always this hope in my mind that he would choose me in the end. Like, I was like, why wouldn't he choose me? We have everything going for us. And so I've never felt like this lack of hope that I did then. As a counselor, it's actually really helped me that I've had this experience, because I've never understood why people get so low and so depressed, so hopeless. And so I really hit rock bottom, and I just had really recognized the reality of how much I put my worth into this particular relationship, and into, oh, I'm not single anymore. I'm in a relationship. I'm about to get married. My sister was preparing for her wedding. So I was starting to like, oh, we get a plan together kind of timing, and my whole story would come together. I'd be a married marriage counselor. Imagine that. And all of that just really rocked my world. And it really kind of scared me about how I was kind of not at the point of complete kind of suicidalness, but there was this kind of attraction to having nothing over what I had. Like, I was like, what's the point? If all of this was leading up to this and I hit this wall, then what else is there? If you're muted.
So, sorry, it was a bit of nihilism.
A nihilism. I don't know. I think there was just a sense of hopelessness, like saying, if this is what I was shooting for, and my whole life kind of seemed to put together, and then nothing, I just didn't know where to go from that. I've never been through a breakup. I had never been through a relationship. I'm a marriage counselor. I was supposed to be a pro at all of this. Yeah. and here I just felt so lost and so forgotten and so abandoned. Like, this was not the plan. This was not this. And so I really realized how much identity I put into this picture, so that when I was wounded, it was even more painful, because there wasn't supposed to be a wound there. It was like a fresh skin that had never been jaded before, I got, and never been cut. So that first cut was so hard. It was so hard.
Yeah, I think who was it? Sheryl Crow really nailed it on the head with her song there. So, and then not to bring light to it, but I mean, art does imitate life, and so what got you out of that lowest depth then?
I think naming it was the first thing to really say, whoa, 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 whoa. Like, what am I like? This is not Annie. I am very happy. I'm hopeful. I'm faithful. A lot of people say I'm kind of the curious people, they know. And I decided that I was really going to reclaim singleness, because my time of singleness prior to this relationship was all pointed towards marriage, and all like, oh, I'm single, but someday I'll get married, and someday, and I'm just so lonely. But then this time I was like, oh, this is a special time. Singleness is so special. And I took a singles course by Stephanie Mae Wilson, who I absolutely love, called Love Your Single Life. And then I got a few more resources of just learning how to embrace a season that you never know how long it will last. So like tomorrow, your singleness can last, and forever. So how are you using this time to really love yourself? So I actually walked the Camino in Spain. So I hiked the Camino.
Okay.
I hiked across Spain by myself, to really reflect on my 20s and welcome my 30s. So it was the summer that I turned 30, and I was like, okay, let's reflect on this whole past decade and welcome this era of being single in your 30s and really doing something for me. And on that walk, I felt really called to go on a year-long dating fast on my 30th birthday and write a book. So during that time of thinking and praying and getting to know people across the world and hearing all these stories, because when you're walking with someone from around the world, I met so many people, but you just walk and you just, hit deep to the heart, like within minutes, because you're just walking. And what else are you going to talk about? You're not just going to talk about the weather. You're going to talk about like, why are you walking? And, oh, you're going through heartbreak and you're going through this, and just to really encounter healing. And so I came back, started a year-long dating fast on my 30th birthday, and God really invited me to write a book called Single Truth about what I've learned about love as a single marriage counselor, as kind of a response from people that say, what do you know as a marriage counselor if you're single? What do you have to teach me if you're not even in a marriage yourself? Kind of like that, those comments that people give me.
Yeah.
And to dedicate it to my ex, and to dedicate it to anyone who doesn't feel worthy of love, and to anyone who doesn't find their identity in anything kind of beyond what's right in front of them and what they can see in their current relationship or lack of.
Yeah. And you brought it before when you were talking about your ex, and then with that walk is, I want to say Camino because I'm such a Star Wars geek, but that's not what it's called, is it?
It is.
Oh, Camino. Okay. Because I just imagine all kinds of clones on either side.
Camino just means walk. That's what Camino means in Spanish, is walk. Or the way.
Yeah. Well, I just want to make sure I heard it correctly.
Yeah.
But it's but anyway, geekiness aside, sorry, as you can tell, I'm, it's all around me. That walk metaphor is so powerful, especially when you use that first with your ex, on his walk, and then you're here on your walk, and using that as a metaphor for a life. A lot of people find that, or at least I think that they might see that their life journey is like from start to end, and that's it. And like marriage is the end; it's the happy ever after. But I just love this image of a walk being, it's you're along the journey, and that's what your book talks about, isn't it?
Yeah, and Just, I really love the subtitle because it's called "You Are More Than Your Relationship Status," and that subtitle came just a week or so before I printed it. Before I was going to say what I've learned about love as a single marriage counselor, so along my walk. But then I felt this turn to focus on other people's walk. Like I wanted it to be an affirmation in itself because affirmation is my love language. And I really like to speak to the reader. So whether that's my psychology profile online or like my therapy profile, or whether that's my website, or whether that's I want to talk to the person that I'm dialoguing with. So I love that it's right there front and center. You are more than your relationship status. So
So many
that's
people
all
need to
you
hear
read.
that.
That's all you need to read. You can
Yeah,
read the
yeah.
book. That's all I want you to know is that even if you don't have a relationship, even if you do have a relationship, you are not that. That's not you are more as a person than just a married person or just a single person.
Yeah. That's huge. And that I think so many people, especially now uh, in this pandemic, when they feel that they can't go out and meet people, or, they are separated from others, that they feel, they might feel, oh, well, I can't date, or
Mhm.
I can't see this person. And it's like, and I love that you're saying, well, that's okay. That doesn't make you less of a person because you're not with someone else.
Yeah, quarantine especially has highlighted everyone's status. So for all the people on the news that are talking about, oh, being stuck with your families and your kids and having to entertain everybody and trying to do this, there was a flip side to that about all the single people who can't hug anybody, who don't have anyone to entertain and who are kind of like, who am I going to hang out with? And I'm currently in quarantine right now, and just all of these seasons of quarantine this year has really highlighted wherever you're at. If you're married, you're married, and quarantine has either made or broken couples
Oh yeah.
because of that awareness, like, oh, we're married. Or single people, you're single in quarantine
Mhm.
because it's very obvious. So I think quarantine has kind of brought to light what we tend to run away from, or what we tend to deny. There's no hiding in the sense of quarantine. So wherever you're at, you are at. And so
Mhm.
it's very, very clear, very evident.
What kind of a response have you received from the book?
I've received a really positive response, and all the reviews on Amazon are really encouraging. And I remind people that the book is not just for singles. As we just said, that whether you are in a relationship or not, people define themselves by that status, no matter what that is. And I've gotten a big feedback from married men reading the book, which I think is really neat. And then some people have pointed out the importance of having middle school kids and high school kids read it, um,
Mm,
in
yes.
in preparation for that, because a lot of times you just are in a stupid relationship or something just for the sake of saying that you're not single. Um, like, it's really for everybody, because whether you are in any season of life, this does not define you. And we just find so many things in life, whether that's our job, all these people who lost jobs this year, they've had to pivot and say, oh, I'm not that. I guess I have to be something else now.
Mhm.
Um, whether you are a parent or not a parent, whether you are um, married, single, divorced, widowed, like all of these things can define us. Um, but they shouldn't, because our story is so much more vast than that. And when we
Yeah.
present ourselves to others, when we present ourselves to the world, we need to think beyond just those general demographic, like saying, oh, I'm just a family guy, but
Yeah.
that's good, but you need to bring other parts of you into that role, so that you have something to give rather than just like, oh, well, this is who I am. I just get to sit in this box now and that's what I do.
Yeah, you are more than the sum of your parts.
Yeah, yeah, totally. And a big part about my book that I do love is that I wrote it with men in mind. And I feel like a lot of relationship resources are very lovey. They're very, romantic kind of girl books, very emotional and focus on kind of the feminine mindset. And I wanted this to be as appropriate for men as possible, so that I made sure like the cover was kind of something that men and women would pick up. I wanted to make sure the reading was very appropriate. I didn't want them to feel like they're picking up this like romance novel. So I think writing it with my ex in mind helped me to know who I was communicating with a man. So like women will definitely get a lot out of it because it's from my heart, from a woman's heart. But I think it speaks to people of all ages, all genders.
Yeah, I mean, and as a man, I appreciate that you wrote the book with men in mind, because a lot of times we are part of the relationship.
Yeah,
and
all the time.
Yeah, so so it's nice to hear that it's not just a book for women that mentions men. It's we are part of the situation too in a lot of situations. So no, I do definitely appreciate that. Now, you said it's on Amazon, correct?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, excellent. And so when was it released?
The summer of 2019.
Okay, all right, so cool. And so what other projects do you have in the works here?
Yeah, I hope to write more. So this was the first book I've written, and I've always loved writing. But now that I've learned how to self-publish, I have learned how to kind of go through the process of actually getting it done. I hope to do more. I'm currently working on a collaboration with a friend of mine on just the community that has formed virtually through the pandemic. So just in this time of isolation, there's actually been more community than I've ever seen in my own life and across the world. I'm so connected to so many people around the world through different lives that have happened, like people connecting around different times of praying together at a certain time, or watching the show like The Chosen. There's an amazing show about the life of Christ. That is the largest crowdfunded project of all time. And it has now been translated in 55 languages. It's now in every country, and it's all free to watch. And it has changed people's hearts all around the world. And it's just, they have 6 more seasons coming. So I'm very excited about what's down the pike for that.
That's excellent. So that's great.
So that's what, and then I'm hoping to start a podcast soon about how our stories have impacted our relationships and our kind of understanding of who God is and who we are called to be. So how our stories have connected us to one another and to God.
Excellent. Now, yeah, please let me know if I can help with that. Because my own personal story, I feel that that speaks to me in some way, and so, and also in terms of just helping you get off the ground. So where can people find you, Annie?
My website is annieharton.com, and then I'm pretty active on Instagram at annie.harton. So pretty easy to be on there, but I do weekly blogs and share all that I'm doing on both of those places.
Excellent. And finally, the last question that my audience loves to learn the answer to: what is your favorite dinosaur? We kind of hinted at it before.
Oh yeah. T-Rex. Because whenever I need a laugh, I just imagine one of the T-Rex memes, like a T-Rex making a bed, a T-Rex doing a backstroke, or or just any sort of thing just makes me really laugh. I don't know why.
It's such a good thing that they're not around anymore to pay retribution. So,
so funny.
well, thank you, Annie. It's been a pleasure talking with you. I greatly appreciate your time. And like, if you guys want to reach out to me, you can find me at linktr.ee/Chris DT Gordon. Please remember to subscribe, like this episode. Let me know what you think about it. But remember, I'm a person, I do have feelings, so use constructive criticism. And as always, thank you so much for being here. Please have a great day. And remember to pass on perfection and go for greatness.